Hey, good evening. I'm really happy to have you here. My name is Daniel, I was a professional opera singer and beatboxer, and tonight we're gonna be continuing our Phantom of the Opera run with Nightwish's rendition of it. This particular performance from Nightwish was heavily recommended, and while I don't have astronomically high expectations, I do expect the performance to be good, especially after having listened to the last Nightwish video that we listened to. So I'm really excited to jump into this, and I hope you guys are as well. So without any further delay, let's jump into it.
Which calls to me and speaks my name.
So big.
But do I dream again?
The sound.
For now I find the Phantom of the Opera is here inside my mind.
So bizarre.
When all your fantasies you always knew, that mad and mystery we both knew. When in this real, when night is high, the phantom of
That was freaking wild. Oh my gosh, dude. There were elements that I loved and elements that I just don't understand. Not in necessarily a negative way. I'm just taken aback more than anything. There's really not much I can describe in this succinct post-analysis. So let's just jump into the actual analysis itself so I can actually pick it apart a little bit more. Her wardrobe is lovely. And I love that the microphone matches. It's fun.
In sleepy sun.
Immediately starting off with a slide. In sleep. From a character standpoint, I'm not really sure what that slide provides. What's the reason you incorporate a slide into something? Oftentimes when I hear a slide in something, especially if you're portraying a certain character, the slide reflects a feeling of being lost, of not being able to nail right in the center of the pitch, so you slide into something to reflect that brain fog or that haze where you're just kind of wandering a little bit. And to start off a piece with a slide, like I said before, I think it's bizarre and I don't necessarily understand it, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong or bad in any way. I respect the choice, and especially if there's a reason that she's doing it that's much more in tune with how she interprets the character and how she thinks it'll ultimately sound in the piece, then all power to her, obviously. And I don't think it sounds bad by any means. I just don't necessarily understand the context of which she's using it. So let's continue on.
In sleepy sun to me, in dreams he came, that voice which...
I love her diction. It is so crisp, very clean. Her vibrato is big, it's open, it's consistent. She has very little tension in her body, so her sound comes out very purely. I think the way that she ends cadences is very forceful. Like, in sleep he sang to me. And you just feel that punch in the face right at the end of the cadence. And because of the intensity of this type of music, I definitely respect the choice. It's not anything that I'm particularly accustomed to, so I'm not really quite sure how to feel about it. But to people who definitely listen to a lot of Nightwish and a lot of this genre of music, I'm sure this is something that you're absolutely elated to hear, and all power to you. It's just something very new and very striking to me, so it's something that I need to spend more time getting to process. But that being said, her cadences and her flow is wonderful here. Let's continue on.
Dreams he came, that voice which calls to me.
Yeah, she's sliding so much. Instead of that voice which calls to me, I'm hearing that voice which calls to... It feels like anguish and confusion, and it feels very stylistic and heavily intentional. So again, I absolutely respect the choices. It's just so striking to me, and it's just so bizarre. But again, it doesn't mean to say that I dislike it. It's just not something I'm accustomed to. And I'm sorry that I'm repeating myself, and I'm going to throughout this piece. It's a mix of things that I do know very well. The diction, the flow, the cadence structure, the melodic lines, the execution of it, the elements of classical singing that she's utilizing. All of those things are wonderfully performed. And then she's adding in elements of what I'm assuming are natural elements of this genre of music, and combining that with her classical technique to create the sound that we're hearing now. And I'm just overwhelmed by it.
And speaks
I was a little weird there because I heard, and do I, very open at first and then biting down. It was over dramatized in terms of the diphthong itself, going from that open ah to e. But typically, classically, if you were to sing I, you would go I and just clip the e at the very tail end of it and not over dramatize it by going I. So I'm assuming that her really big vowels and very grand execution of the lyrics is intentional here, not just for the audience's sake in terms of understanding the lyrics, but in terms of the overall sound. And again, it's just very striking, but not in any negative way. It's just I need so much more time than this reaction to reflect on and process what it is that I'm hearing.
Name, and do I dream again? For now I find the
Her placement there is just behind her nose, where it doesn't sound nasal, where the sound is being generated through her nose of the fa, but the fa, where you definitely get that nasal quality, but it's still so open and so well supported, and it's resonating in her chest beautifully. It's just the placement of it, again, audibly striking. And I okay. The opera. Where does that come from? The opera. I feel like that just didn't mesh with everything that she's built so far vocally. That particular section of the cadence feels like an outlier from everything else that she's built up vocally, where she has this huge, beautiful, open resonance, and then all of a sudden we get this very quick and sharp opera. And it's really interesting having this contrast in this melodic line, because when I think of this piece, I think of the contrast between the two characters. But she's kind of contrasting herself here, which again, I can respect. I just need more time to process it and try to understand what it is that she's trying to build for her audience, because I'm just lost. I don't know the world that she's trying to build for me here.
inside my mind.
I love the fact that all of the performers, even if they're not necessarily playing anything or doing much with their instruments at this time, they're all performing. They're all either acting or just feeling every ounce of energy that's on the stage, that's in the audience, and using it to channel their entire beings to start extremely strong in this piece. And I love the fact that I can look at them and feel this intense energy just boiling inside of them out to the surface, ready to explode into their instruments. Oh yeah, I love that in a performance. So good. I fully, with my heart of hearts, believe that the moment you walk out on stage, that is when you are performing. Not when you introduce yourself, not when you introduce the piece, not when you begin the piece. The moment you walk out on stage, that is when the performance begins. And in past videos, I talked about where I first learned that, but it's so important that every person on stage is performing, even if you're not actively playing your instrument or just doing something very minor. Your energy heavily contributes to what the audience experiences, and it's so important that you play your role to the absolute best of your ability the moment you step out on stage. So important. Oh, and it's so heavy hitting. Yeah, and then all of a sudden we go from this beautiful lyric flow into this dun 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 dun, very coarse, rugged, raw atmosphere. And then we get, I believe his name is Marco here, whose voice is also matching that rough, rugged, raw energy. And this is where I feel the contrast really shines, because, and I'm going to point this out throughout the performance itself too, where you have this, not only a contrast in this beautiful open lyric voice and this rough, direct, in-your-face, coarse voice, but also their vowel shapes are completely different, and the way that they approach their vocal lines are very different. And there's so many contrasting elements that just do not mesh well at all, but that's the point. You know, you have this very beautiful character and this very horrifying character. And I think that's really expert storytelling in that way. Does it make the music itself sound amazing? That's completely subjective and up for debate. But in terms of the storytelling, which I think is absolutely necessary in this type of music, it's undeniably excellent.
Hey, once again with me, I stray to it. My power over you grows stronger yet.
But his vibrato is still nice too. Is stronger yet. Like, I obviously not able to replicate it at all. But the idea is the same, where when his vibrato does come through, it's very consistent and really nice, actually. But his diction is also excellent. It's so grungy. It's so and again, not to say it's a bad thing, it's just I can't help but make this face so striking, so direct, so but I'm having a good time. Don't get me wrong, I'm having a good time.
Those who have seen your face draw back in fear. I am the mask you wear.
I will say that something I really do enjoy is at the very beginning when I said that she ends her cadences with this kind of punch in the face where it feels like instead of tapering out, it's a very strong breath pushed out, or the consonant is just so heavy hitting. But she's so consistent with it. And the reason why that's so important is the moment you start off a piece with that kind of intensity, if you were to just stop doing it at some point in the middle of the piece, just because you just wanted to build that atmosphere in the beginning, then you lose so much of that slap in the face energy. And if you're trying to build a world, you need elements of that world to remain consistent. Otherwise, people are going to just feel lost and not necessarily understand what it is that they're experiencing. And even though that's me to a certain degree, that's just because I'm not as familiar with this genre of music. Like I've mentioned in my previous Nightwish video, and I only have one other Nightwish video on my channel, so please go check that out if you haven't already. Outside of Nightwish, the only symphonic metal I've heard is a symphonic metal cover of the Sephiroth theme from Final Fantasy and the Megalovania theme from Undertale. So I'm not as familiar with the genre of music and the nuances and intricacies as to what makes it truly spectacular. But something that can be taken from any genre of music when actively storytelling is if you start a piece with very particular vocal accents, that needs to remain consistent throughout the entirety of the piece. And you can adapt it, mold it, structure it in differing ways to keep the piece alive and energized, but the pith of those accents that you decide to commit to need to remain there. And she's doing such a superb job of that, making sure that her tonal center and character are all consistent and strong and well supported throughout the entirety of the piece, and I really, really dig that.
They'll hear your spirit and my voice in one combine.
Yeah, and this is what I mean. When they're singing the duet, their voices just do not match up in the slightest. Yes, they're singing the same note, and yes, they're singing the same word. Their vowel shapes are completely different, both in their lip shape and inside of their mouth. And what I mean by that is, if I were to sing the letter E, it's E inside, E outside. E. But if I were to round my lips into an oo, but keep my E vowel inside my mouth, it kind of sounds like an umlaut, a particular letter in German. Like the word Goethe, G. Oo lips, E inside, Ü, instead of E, which is more of a bright vowel. So it's really important that when you sing a vowel, you understand the vowel you're making both inside your mouth and your lips themselves, and the way that the vowel is supported as well. That also heavily contributes to the sound of the vowel. So the fact that we have this really big open vowel and this more intense, brighter vowel, it's so striking in its contrast. But like I was mentioning earlier, I really do dig that because these two characters are very polarizing, which kind of adds an element of seduction to each other. It adds an element of strong intrigue, and they're both compelled to be near each other. And it's because of how strikingly different both of their approaches to this vocal line are. I think that's what makes it even more compelling to engage with them on. And I really respect these choices. The more that I'm talking about it, the more captivated and rapt I am by this execution. It's so bizarre, but yet I find myself so fascinated. So we just heard her sing opera. So we know that she can sing this open ah. And when we think of the letter A, we think of a bright ah kind of vowel. But like I was mentioning with the rounded sound, she's rounding it out a little bit more to create that more darker tone of opera. Like an AH instead of just that traditional ah. Lone A sound. So after we get that very dark open ah, which I find very satisfying, we get the fa, and she's taking that very direct forward sound that Marco has in the Phantom. And the way that I'm internalizing that and interpreting that is the Phantom's energy is creeping into her psyche a little bit, which I really like the mental imagery of. But at the same time, you know, that could very well not be the intention of what it is. But I like the fact that all of us as audience members are given that space, that room for interpretation as to the particular stylistic choices that she's committing to here. And it's just so interesting. Like, let's listen to the way that she executes Phantom again and how direct it is.
When all your fantasies, you always knew that mystery.
It's so beautiful, and this contrast between this coarseness and this beautiful smooth lyric voice with this beautiful vibrato, it's so strikingly different in their costuming, in their execution of the main melodic line. It's just so captivating, dude. So on this beautiful operatic section that she's committing to here, she's changing her mouth position a lot. And it's shaking a little bit because of her vibrato, which tells me that the vibrato is a little bit forced through jaw tension instead of generating vibrato directly through your breath support and your physical support in your body. And what I mean by that is when you execute vibrato, the idea is that you're singing a pitch and using the support in your body and your breath support, which all contribute to the same thing, in order to fluctuate the pitch. And an idea of that is singing a straight tone, and then adding vibrato with breath support, and noticing that my jaw wasn't moving throughout that because the breath itself was the thing that was spinning that note in order to generate the vibrato. And vibrato comes very naturally. You just need to work with your own voice for a while, and the vibrato will come with time. It's not necessarily something that you need to really force or focus on developing. It's just going to happen with time as you continue to practice voice with proper technique. So when I see vocalists that have their jaw shaking as they're committing to vibrato, it leads me to believe that it feels a little forced in a way, but that can simply be because of the energy of the crowd, the energy of the performance, and how big she wants these sounds to appear towards her audience. And I also recognize that her mouth is changing shape a lot in order to manipulate the vowel itself from going to an open ah to an open ah, which is a very minor difference, but it does add a certain level of audible contrast, which not only creates a certain level of momentum, but it keeps the vowel itself alive. Because if you're already at a forte or a fortissimo or a loud or very loud volume dynamic, it's going to be very, very difficult to try to allow that musical phrase itself to grow in any way. And you obviously can't shrink it in because the instruments themselves are very dominating and you need this line to be present. So you can't grow past an already very loud volume as much, at least. So you need some way to keep that sound still captivating, like there's still growth happening. And the way to do that is to very slightly modify the vowel and fluctuate between those vowels in order to add that feeling of growth or that feeling of movement in the vocal line itself, outside of just the vocal line itself moving, to add that additional layer of movement. So with all of that said, let's listen to that again so I can observe her more carefully. Yeah. Okay, so her jaw is shaking a lot as she's making this vibrato. That could be a sign of nerves as well, but she just emits this incandescent confidence off of her. It shines so brightly. There could be a myriad of reasons as to why her jaw is shaking so much here. It could be nerves, it could be exhaustion, it could just be her technique and understanding as to this is how I generate the sound, but it feels a little too forced here. Even if she sacrificed a little bit of the volume in order to execute the sound a little bit more through the breath instead of through the jaw, I think the sound itself would feel a little bit more pure, further adding to that contrast between Marco and Tara here. So, just something to reflect on. But I will say that the execution of these notes that she's hitting is excellent. Same thing with Marco. Oh my gosh, dude. Now it just feels like he's just screaming. But before though, that was my point. That note was excellent. I didn't see her jaw shaking violently there. That was just full breath support, full power, right in the middle of that pitch, just shooting for the stars there. Oh, that was very compelling. Although she does have some tension in her face, but I'm going to completely excuse that because I have a difficult time controlling that as well when I perform. Okay, it sounded like she wasn't able to fully complete that note, and I want to hear that again. Yeah, her pitch wavers at the end there, and it falls flat, and it doesn't feel like that strong punch in the face that we normally get at the end of her musical phrases. It feels like her voice just kind of gave out at the very tail end of that. Kind of like what her body is doing right now, just kind of giving out. Which is obviously intentional in terms of her movement here, but probably not in terms of her voice. But that note is extremely difficult to execute, so I'm not going to hold that against her. Just in terms of the music and the performance itself, it does sound like it was really tough to execute in that moment, and it just wasn't all the way there at the end, which is unfortunate, but I'm not going to hold that against her. Like I said, it is so difficult executing notes like that, as powerful, as consistent as she's making it here. Plus, I have no idea how long she's been performing on stage. I have no idea how exhausted she is, what her nerves are. There's so many factors that go into things like this when performing live especially, so all power to her for executing that note the way she did, as long as she did, honestly. Really great retard here at the end with the strong coarse scream. Oh! Yeah, I really dig it. Amazing guitar riff at the end there. Oh my gosh, I want to listen to that one more time. Dope. Yeah, what a dope piece, man. So many striking elements and really captivating elements that even though I might not understand presently now in the moment, I'm sure I'm going to become more adjusted to the more that I listen to symphonic metal as a genre, let alone Nightwish. Just really interesting ideas too. I really love the execution and atmosphere of the piece that they're building. The more I listen to it, the less lost I'm sure I'm going to feel over time. Yeah, just really interesting stuff here, and I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about it, but again, it's nothing bad. It's just me trying to process everything that's happening. But really cool stuff, very intriguing. I digged it. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. If y'all liked it, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. I do read all of the comments, even if I may not heart or reply to all of them, so please just know that your comments do not go unnoticed, and I do take them into consideration as I make future videos. My live streams are currently Thursdays at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so if you guys would like to stop by and say hey or ask any questions about myself or the channel, I'll be more than happy to be there for you guys. So, brief backstory. Once upon a time, I had my own voice studio, and I had to step back away from it to focus on my career at the time, and now I'm opening it back up again. I'm finishing up working on a Calendly webpage in order to schedule voice lessons with me. I'm really excited to present that, and I will give you guys more details and information as to when that's ready to be launched, and I'm really excited to launch that. In terms of my Patreon, I had a ton of issues uploading the content that I wanted to, and a lot of the data was either blocked completely or I just couldn't upload it at all, and it was very frustrating to try to navigate around, especially after all of the work that I put into it. So I'm restructuring my Patreon, and it's going to be a little bit while longer before that's officially launched, and I will absolutely give you guys details as to when that will happen. I want to take this moment to appreciate all of you being here watching these videos, and it really does mean a lot to me, so honestly, thank you so much. And I can't wait to see all of you in the next video. Have a great rest of your evening, everyone.